Session on 6/13 for the City Council.
Thanks for Mayor and Council for joining this evening. I'm going to let you know in preface that the CIP was updated by myself at 11 p.m. on Tuesday this week, or last week, and I got done about 2 a.m. So if there's issues and problems, we're going to have to talk about them later on. So I'm going to preface that right away. I got most of them in. Some conversations with department heads that I had notes on and such. There's a few of them in there already that Marty had mentioned to me that, hey, you forgot to put this in the later year. I'm like, oh, okay, good. We'll make sure we'll put that out.
But was there also extra stuff?
There shouldn't have been anything added extra. So everything that I made sure was in there
I missed the opportunity.
was 26 and 27. I focused on heavily with all department head stuff. So I made sure I put everything in there for the next few years. Further out years is where you might not see as many things added because I did not put as much emphasis on those further out years at this moment. I will work on that and I will send out an updated draft. My goal is to do that before the 4th of July. So I will send out an updated draft to you next week with all of the things from the department heads so we can have a further discussion about it. But as noted in an email a couple of weeks ago, limited time and trying to figure out when this is going to work for a CIP discussion with myself being absent at the next council meeting. Then to jam it into this council meeting, which then ends up adding more work to my plate, and that didn't work out quite so well. So, and I didn't focus on what needs to be focused on apparently. So, we'll talk about 26 and 27 heavily, and I have CIP one-pagers for the Fund 401 or your top sheet, which we have done over the last few years, and it seems to have helped with conversations related to what's happening. And then we'll talk heavily about changes that we made, which is on the second page of the CIP document that you have that shows where things were moved to. If they were moved out or in, or dollars were changed around, what were they before, what are they now, and go from there. We'll spend most of our time on Fund 401, and then we'll go through the rest of the funds and talk about them. There are limited changes on the other ones. I mean, there's additions and such, as always, but Fund 401 seems to be always the one we spend the most time on. And that is related to equipment, because equipment changes from year to year of what's needed and what may need to be needed, and it also gets pushed out and in depending on if we could say, okay, we can get another year out of that item, let's push it again another year from department head status, or we may have to bring one in depending on if it's like that's just costing us too much in repairs that might need to be replaced sooner than what we thought. I'm going to start at the top and go down here, and we'll start with the replacement of utility trailer and the replacement of the 1999 mower. So those are the first two items on your white sheets here that are the 8.5 by 11s. I've tried to do them in order as best I could today. The mower is from 1999. We are still using a 1999 mower, yes. I don't know if that's a daily one or if that's just a backup, but I'll tell you what, it's not great to have a 1999 mower. And I don't know when the utility trailer's from, but
That's it's been here ever since I've been here.
okay, so that would have been at least 2005.
Yeah, 2005 at least, I'm sure it's older than that.
Okay, so
That's the mower, right?
Yeah,
yep, that's the mower or something similar to that. And then a utility trailer replacement for those, because we have 2 mow crews that go out now, especially in the summer. Previously, we probably only had one, but now with all the parkways and additional spaces we have for outlots and whatnot that we have to maintain as the city, we have 2 mow crews that go out now, and each one can hold 3 mowers. So, any questions on those two? Those seem 2 fairly straightforward replacements. They aren't additions; they're just replacements of older equipment, making sure our stuff stays in usable condition.
Yeah. Looks like 3 60-inch mowers in 3 years
yeah.
on the CIP, so these are all replacements, or?
That's where we're getting to, is the replacement. So I think the one that's following this one is a 2000, 60-inch.
Yes.
Yeah, and so...
And then the last one is a new one, as in not a replacement.
Yeah.
So 26 is a replacement of the 1999. 27 is a replacement of the
2012.
2012, maybe? Is it
It says
2002?
2012 60-inch mower with bigger attachment.
Okay, yep. So 2012 mower, and then the last one is a new unit for a 60-inch mower. Good question. Yeah. Okay, so the first 2 I talked about with the utility trailer and the 60-inch mower. The 2027 one, something we don't have any questions on those, but the good question on the mower one, so we can touch base on that. Utility tractor. This is the big item in parks area. And this is a replacement item. Right now it's a 1990 we have.
Yeah.
We purchased a similar unit in 2022. and it seems to be doing well. from what
Yes,
we
it's a
understand.
very useful piece of equipment for us. We got a bunch of different attachments for it. A flail mower that we bought a couple of years ago that enables us to go around storm ponds and ditches, and the ploughing equipment is really useful. It's a self-contained unit that can get all the way down to the interchange on its own back. It doesn't have to have a trailer or anything to take it down there. So it's really useful like that, and with the additional trails that we're getting, another trail mower would be good.
So that would be a replacement for, like I said, the 1990s, so it would be $130,000 of cost.
And the 1990 has been in the Mississippi ones.
Okay. Good to know. Still running.
Yeah, still running.
Second one was the bagger attachment, so it looks like a bagger's roughly $5,000 for a bagger attachment for the 60-inch mower. Field marking equipment, that is moved up. Was that out a couple years before? Can't remember if that one was out or if we added that.
Field marking, it was, oh, that's on the new one. It was out a couple of years, I believe.
Okay. And we are having to mark this back field, and I'm assuming numerous other ones more often now with more and more use of these fields that we have. And so being it's a 20-plus-year-old piece of equipment, it's starting to get not as reliable.
What other fields do we use this on?
We use it on McNeil, over at River Hills. We're going to be using it down at Diamond Lake Diamonds, and back here. We also use it for marking parking lot, city parking lots, parking spaces, that kind of thing, and we'll be using it at the new parking lot by the school.
So, field marking equipment, and then obviously street marking or parking lot marking equipment as well. We don't know how old it is, we just know it's more than 20 years old because that's a lot more spent here.
Yeah.
Same thing with the trailer, it's older than that. And the last one for parks is a 1-ton crew cab truck.
Where's that one?
That one would be your third one in.
350?
Yes,
Yeah.
F-350 crew cab. That should be for 80,000, correct?
Yep.
And this is just an additional.
So is
I
that an
noticed
additional
there's
one?
Yes.
Kind of a plethora of 1-ton pickups. What,
Yes.
I think some of those 1-tons are changing to F-350s. I think there was some mix-up a while ago about the 1-ton in there.
there's,
I think there was 5 at one time.
So we have, right now in parks, we're looking to replace one,
Yep.
which is a 1-ton or an F-350 from my understanding.
It will be an F-350.
FD-350 or a 1-ton, they're known as the same thing.
Well, 1-ton's 550.
what's 550?
Yeah.
1-ton is a 550?
This is a 3/4 ton.
I thought a 550 was a 1.5 ton.
1 ton is a 1 ton. A 1 ton is a 1 ton.
Yeah, but is it a,
It's
is
a
it a,
350.
3/4 ton. And
I thought,
50 is a
that's what I
1.
thought, a 350
350
was
is
a
a
1
1
ton.
ton.
yeah, that's what I thought.
250 is a
It's
3/4
3,500.
Yep.
But the ones that we got as a 1-ton is 550, so.
in Ford.
Hmm?
In a Ford?
In a Ford, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm a Chevy guy.
I think we just got those, but our 2 Fords that we got were 350s. not
Yeah,
1 tons.
I thought they were 1-tons.
Okay.
They are.
Okay, that's what I
So,
thought. Okay. So, yes, we have one in parks, and then if you move down to public works, which is sit the 2 public safety spots in the middle. You have one next year for 75,000. That should be, is that a replacement, Marty, or is that an addition?
That's replacing a 2009.
So the 2026 one is replacing a 2009 pickup.
Yeah.
I need to make sure we write this stuff down so that,
I've got it all.
but there was a
In
third
here
one
as
in
well.
here too.
say that one more time.
There was a third one somewhere.
Yep, and then there should be one more listed in 2027, and then that replaces the 2012.
All right. So really just one
So
of
we
these
have
is new.
one additional one, yes. And then we have 2 replacements. One is a 2009 and one is a 2012.
And this new one, the one that doesn't, that's an additional one. That's
Yes.
not anything we can copy others for.
So what is your question, Mayor, is how do we need one more?
Yeah,
Vehicle?
I'm kind of wondering why we need the, especially, I mean, this is going to be with all this stuff. It's clear that we really need to crunch some stuff. And I'm just wondering what this one is.
Which one is that?
So you have one new additional one, Marty, in 2027 for the Parks Department. How many current vehicles do you have for the Parks Department?
Parks Department, we have one that is assigned to the Parks Department and one that is used by both departments. So there's a F-350 that is totally for the Parks Department.
Okay.
And we use one from the other fleet. So I'm trying to get the two fleets separated out so they manage their own maintenance each way. So the F-350 that's going in parks is because, we're having to run two crews now.
Okay.
So you can't have as many guys running in the cab at the same time.
Can I ask what we do with the used ones?
By the time they're out of service, we send them to auction.
Okay.
Last ones we've gotten in auction have been somewhere between $2,000 and $3,500.
Yeah.
We use them for so long. I mean, 2009. By the time we use them that long, they're worth nothing. Nobody wants them because they're either all rotted out, and so like the last couple ones we've had, because we didn't store them inside for a long time, they were all
And
called roached out or all, I guess, rusted out the bottom.
we never had anywhere to store them inside, and we couldn't wash them off or hose them off after they've been out snow plowing. So they were
The salt.
sucking up the salt, and so the earliest we can do it, wash them was in the spring when it got better. So they obviously took a lot of road salt on them and that.
Yeah, those are the older ones. I would say we switched that somewhere in
Well, they started being stored inside in 2017. We got a new shop.
Yeah, so the newer ones should hopefully last
Yeah.
a lot longer.
Okay.
Plus Ford runs an aluminum body as well, so it
Yeah.
doesn't rust either.
Question, everything in 2026 that's on, all the way down the whole sheet,
Yep,
that's all part of the 19% ask, correct?
that is included.
Oh.
Yes, that is included in the 19% ask or whatever it is. Yes.
How do you figure?
What do you mean? How do I figure?
Well, for example, the extrication tools, 40K.
Yep.
Where do you see that on the fire department list? What it is this is all, a lot of capital is going to fill in our capital budget that's already got money in it.
Their ask for 2026 is 1.3.
You mean
Right.
additional dollars?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's 280,000 more than 2025, so, yes.
What? I didn't catch that.
It's, their ask for 2026 is 280,000 for CIP
More.
more.
Yes.
So that would say that the 1.3, it's roughly 1.3.
1.3 million. Yep.
Yep, that includes all of this equipment, I would think.
It's more than that. There's equipment on here that's going to be purchased through, if we didn't raise the budget or the revenue, the tax levy, if we put it at zero, there would still be money in to purchase capital equipment.
There would not be any money if you took the capital number from 1.3 million that you're stating as a tax levy number that we talked about last council meeting. If you took that down to zero, there would be $0 left to purchase any capital
Anything.
equipment. Yes. it'd be
Right.
$0.
No.
Well, if you don't have any money going into the levy, you
Right.
can't purchase new equipment.
But if
We
you-
have, okay, I'll give you an example. We have, last year, we spent on a front-end loader and a mower. That was a one-time purchase.
Yep.
That's in the zero, so that's in the budget.
Yes.
If you didn't raise the levy at all, if that money
Oh,
is
it's
still
still yes.
available.
What Scott is saying is that if you took away the $1 million that you had in capital last year, that's what
No,
you're saying.
no, what I'm saying is,
If you had $1
this
million,
is all part of that $1 million. Last year's
yes.
capital improvement money was $1,020,000.
Yes.
And we're adding 280 to it this year to make it
Correct.
1.3.
Yes, that is correct.
So we still have the 1,020,000.
Yes, yes.
And now we're adding 280 to it.
Yes. And part of that, most of that in that 280 that's being added to that is related to the ladder truck. So it's still $1 million worth of, if we weren't to pay for the ladder truck, if we were to say, okay, we're not gonna save that money for the ladder truck that we had talked about last year, which is the 100,000, and we had planned to do a stepped increase every year of roughly 300 grand every year. If we said, we're not gonna pay for the ladder truck anymore, we're gonna take that away, we back down to the 1,020,000, and we would have all of these items here paid for, that are listed in 26.
Ladder truck or whatever, it doesn't matter what the item is, whatever that
Yes.
value is.
So I
goes
lost
off the
track of,
1.3.
initially your statement was part of the 19%.
Yes.
Is increase. That's the
The
increase.
280,000 is part of the 19%.
Yes.
Not the 1,020,000, because that's already baked in.
That's already done.
Okay,
Yes, that's
okay, I
already done.
understand
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a
My point-
$280,000 increase requested
Correct.
this year.
Correct. My point is, if,
Yes.
personally, I think we gotta do something with the 19, so it's gonna be give and take.
Yep.
So, some of this can't happen if you take.
We might be able, so based on, again, I did not have enough time, unfortunately, to focus on getting all the numbers moved around. We could probably reduce something out of here because we moved some things and items that Marty and I had talked about, or
Right.
Paul and I talked about, whatever, that moved it out a little ways, or Gary and I talked about, hey, can we move that out another year or two? And one of them we'll talk about is the road grader and the packer, which didn't get moved on this sheet. Those need to get moved out to another future year. And so those ones then are two big items of $275,000 in those two items. Those get moved out to 2030. So we don't need to do them right this second.
But to your point, anything we can shift out or pull off helps that.
Absolutely, it
helps
brings that
that,
90% down.
Yes.
Yes, it does. And that, but I don't want to make sure we know that if we kick it down the road, say
Well-
okay, and then doesn't mean that
Right.
we can't then just say keep kicking it. We try to keep kicking it as far as we can.
Right.
But
Or you find you don't need it. and
that's what I
move
mean.
it
So you
out.
keep kicking it down the road until it's like, okay, you have to have that piece of
Well,
equipment.
kicking it down the road assumes that you're ignoring something. I'm just saying that there are some things we could legitimately push out.
Yeah, and that could, like we mentioned, the packer and the road grader, we could kick those out for a while, 2030, and that's $275,000 that we
Yeah,
own.
I was gonna ask about that.
Yep.
Greater.
And so those are some items that I mentioned before, but this utility tractor, like some of the ones that we talked about the parks, the only one that you're thinking about that we could maybe push is one ton truck. Could we push that? I don't know. I'd have to look with Marty and say, can you make it another year without having another truck? But that would be 2 years now more. That's
Only
at
if you
27.
don't have a $9,000 repair bill.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's been a lot of repair bills.
A lot of repair bills. One transmission's $9,000, so. Okay, we'll touch base
Yeah.
on, okay, so 26, total request for 26 in the Parks Department is $35,000. Those are both replacements. And you got new extrication tools at Station 2, and $475,000, which is the largest request this year in 26. That is for the purchase of that engine tender we already paid for in 2023 for the fire department, and we said we will use those future dollars to be able to pay for that. So that's essentially earmarked dollars that we had to pay for that engine tender, and that was given to the council, like I said, back in 23, and there was a breakdown of how are we going to pay for that. It ended up being $1.186 million after the discount we got. We got about $140,000 discount, somewhere in there, for paying early. So that 475 has to be there to pay for that engine tender truck that we already technically paid dollars for. We just now get reimbursed for those dollars to come back into that fund. So the new request is for extrication tools at Station 2, and I'll hand that off to the chief for explaining of one set for Station 1, one set for Station 2 for extrication tools.
Yeah, so we just did, I have not evaluated our extrication tools since I've been here. And those tools are, one set is 15 years old, the other is, I think, 12 years old. Typically, we go with 10-year replacement for all the fire department equipment. Typically, that's the requirement. These we can extend a little bit. The problem that we're having with both of these is the hoses over time start to erode and start to get into cracking and leaking and the possible because of the high pressure exploding.
Are they inspected?
Yeah, we take a look at them and then we try to get them, we found a few leaks when we did this extrication training last month. So There's ways to move things around, and I'll just throw it out there, we do have public safety dollars still, so, but I've hung on to those. So being a team player and trying to figure out how to, move things around, that could be a possibility as well. To Zach's point, we haven't had a whole lot of time to kind of really massage the numbers and everything, but those are out there. They do need to be replaced, otherwise we'll have to purchase additional hoses, which we have the tools themselves that have some issues as well.
So this is mostly replacement.
This is replacement equipment that we already currently have. Just it didn't show up on here, and I think too, I don't know, Zach, it's down the road, but 2030, we have 500,000 for new SCBA's, and that's a requirement that we to purchase those after 15 years.
What are those?
They're SCBA's, our self-contained air packs.
Oh,
And so we are at the 10-year mark this year, so the bottles, everything are being hydro tested this year, but that's something looking 5 years down the road. Just as, I don't know if that was on there.
It is on there, yep.
It's on there now, but I don't know if it was before or not.
It should have been. I think we added it last year, but we didn't discuss it much just because it's so far out. We typically try to focus on those next couple of years when we're looking at things. But
Yep.
well,
Replacement.
considering my big term is I woke up sucking air, air is pretty important.
Can I ask a question?
we're also looking at grant dollars for that too. So we're trying to find other ways to
The 40.
pay.
the extrication
Yes,
tools.
extrication. We're looking at grant money and stuff. We have a couple of requests in. So
So
yes.
during the extrication training that just happened, we found issues, so what are we doing? If there's issues currently with them, like what's the plan if we needed to use it tomorrow?
They're still usable. It's just a thing that we want to make sure that we can replace them in the near future. Because the hoses, the biggest thing they have pointed out to us is the hoses and their replacement of those because of the issue where we get into, because they're under such high pressure and then they burst and explode and then we end up hurting the firefighter or they just become inoperable. The newer technology too is to get rid of the hoses. It's all self-contained, one unit, which is a battery operated unit, so it takes up less space in the trucks and so forth. So
It's a hydraulic hose, right?
yes.
So your question is if we can replace it sooner with grant dollars and for public safety dollars, we will. But if we don't have the money to be able to do it, we're going to have to make sure we have them planned out sooner than later to try to replace them. I think is to address your question.
How many hoses are we talking about?
We have 1, 2, 3. We have 4 sets of hoses for 2 sets for each. I'm sorry, 1 set for each extrication tool itself. So there's a orange and a blue on each station. And the cost of those, I don't know what the replacement costs if we're able to get them. That's the other problem is because of the age of the equipment.
I think you could have some made.
We could look into seeing if we can get them. Again, we haven't had a lot of time, which I preface that we haven't had a lot of time to really massage the
Well,
numbers.
if we're worried about them bursting, it seems like
At least you gotta fix the hose. It doesn't
should-
sound like
we
you can.
should-
I don't even know if you can.
We just replaced blades, right? That's in the,
Those blades are used specifically for the extrication training.
okay.
So that's,
Because there was 2 sets on there.
yeah, those all $700 is used for the extrication training.
Yeah.
We burn, and those blades are just for our sawzall, so we use those up.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if we were able to get the blades, it's possible we might be able to get the hoses if
you
we.
could make
Yeah,
hoses.
depending on what they
It could-
are.
yeah, I
No,
was-
those, just to clarify, those have nothing to do with the extrication tool. These are the blades that you saw in the pay request. Those are for the sawzall, so the little things.
Oh, not for the
Not
actual.
for the, no, not for the
that-
extrication
okay.
tool.
But we can look into seeing if we have a bunch of hoses in.
If we
If the
can.
chief and I can figure out how to make it work, we'll take them off the CIP. It's not, that's not a hold steadfast
No.
number. It's a, we need something. If we don't have anything, we're not gonna be in a good spot. So let's get it figured out.
It seems like kind of 2 different things to me.
Yep.
I mean, the tool has a useful life, right?
Yep.
Near the end of that or added, but if there's a current concern for the safety of using the tool, that's something that should be just addressed
Correct.
and taken care of. Now, whether that then says, well, we don't need these for 10 years, I don't know if that's correct either. It might
Yep.
buy a year or something, but
Yeah.
The concern is the safety issue, make sure the practice.
If the levy comes down to $40,000,
Yeah.
if the levy comes down to $40,000, that's all we need to figure out. The chief and I'll have a conversation, and we'll figure it out, so.
Yeah.
It's 40 grand. Right now,
We'll have a bake
I'm
sale.
not seeing 40 grand
I'm not seeing
being the issue, so.
No.
Moving down, so 27 for the chief, same with fire department, we got extrication tools for station 1, again, just trying to plan out for that. In replacement of the assistant chief vehicle, the assistant chief vehicle is currently a 2017, so it will be 10 years old at that point.
Why is that one worn out?
I'll look at the chief and
Kind
say,
of miles,
Yeah.
my miles is, to me, is more important than years.
I mean, same, that's why I'm asking. Like, I get why the plow trucks are like salt and like, I
yeah,
get why that.
this one
so-
is not in a bad shape.
so
Not in
why-
bad shape. We're gonna repurpose it as well. But I need to put together a strategic plan. But we do have, looking at that part-time or a fire inspector down the road here, need an additional vehicle for them, so that vehicle actually be repurposed. But again, we can, work with Zach and figure out how that works. It's not like the wheels are falling off.
Because you're talking to someone who, like my last car made it to 300,000 miles and only got replaced because the AC went out on me and I didn't have a good mechanic at that time. And I sold to someone who did have a good mechanic and got another 50,000 miles on that car. So I may drive it into the ground kind of person
Yeah, so
before I
there's
replace it.
and we've had this conversation in the past with
Yeah.
council members, this is
Yeah.
always a trade and balance of either you get nothing for it and you drive it, which is fine, that's what we can do that. And we end up going with I'll use the public works model of drive that thing on the ground, it's worth $0 when you get done with it. Or you try to get some useful life out of it, go, okay, 10 years, okay, it's still got a lot of useful life for, I would say, a normal person, then that's still worth, I don't know, 15 or 20 grand or something, so you get something back, so you're not spending 90 on it, you're only spending 70 or whatever the number ends up being.
Do we know what the mileage on it right now is?
It's not that much.
I think it's like a little over 50.
50,000?
Oh,
Well, and it doesn't normally.
That baby's got another
15.
200 in it.
I would think.
That's why kind of why I was
I mean, I get
asking.
like.
Typically, it's all about the hours. So, like the number of hours they sit
Does
and
run.
idle and they
Okay.
idle,
Yeah.
and just that's what we have with the police department vehicles.
150, I think.
Is you see the mileage, but it's really the hours that the engine's on because it sits there and runs or whatever else. And so, like that's why we went to the lease vehicles of squads, is because they sit there and run for hours and they don't move.
We got rid of
They
it.
just sit there and idle and idle and idle, and they'll have 9,000 hours of idle time and 50,000 miles. So part of it is that too, but we will look at and analyze if it's really needed in 27. Maybe we can push it out 28 or 29. This isn't a make or break item. That's why it's in 27, a couple of years out. Moving down, police. The only two things in police for this year are again the taser lease, which we've had, and then the squads and equipment that is leasing. Boy, I think it's 10 vehicles at this point. Chief, does that sound right? Okay. So it's leasing 10 new vehicles. Those are then replaced on a certain life. So what happens to them is we are on a lease program from Enterprise. We then pay a monthly rate to lease them. It's either a 3-year or a 5-year, depending on if it's an admin vehicle or if it's a squad vehicle that's actually on the road. Unlimited mileage. They cover everything. Everything's under warranty the whole time, which is really, really nice for us. And then we hand it back to them, and at the end of it, they say it's supposed to be worth, I don't know, whatever amount of money, 10 grand or 15 grand. If they sell it for more than that, we get the credit for the above amount, and it goes to the next lease payment on a monthly basis. So we are basing this on the highest rate per lease vehicle, as in like we're expecting, if they said that we're gonna get 10 grand back, we get 10 grand back. It doesn't go anywhere, it's wipes at zero. If we get less than that, we still get the 10 grand credit. We don't lose any money. It's only basically a win or nothing kind of deal.
And this is more cost effective than
Way
mine
more
are.
cost effective. What we found out is that the repairs ends up being so much on the vehicles after, I would say, like 3 to 4 year range, and it's because of the hours that they sit there and idle, that we end up spending, we just spend how much on that engine? 6 or 7 grand on an engine for a 2018 Charger. Like, it shouldn't have been that bad already and totally shot. Or we already spent one on a 2020 Durango. We bought that, and now I needed a brand new engine. That was $9,000. That was last year. So what we end up seeing is that there ends up being more and more costly repairs, and the lease covers everything.
And they're idle because you got
We got,
10 watts of, or 10 amps of
we
juice
have
going
all
out.
the electricity that it uses.
Yeah.
Narcan, your medical bags with oxygen.
Oh, and that needs a temperature.
Yep,
Yep.
Narcan's temperature driven, so we have to keep
So
them
they
running.
they sit there and idle and idle and idle, and that's what the problem
We
is.
see a lot of radiator issues lately.
Yeah.
know,
I would imagine.
So
So they're literally idling,
if they're
24.
turned on to start your shift, they idle till they.
but the Narcan, how do you deal with, oh, because they're parked inside?
They're, yeah,
Yeah.
in the winter time, they're all inside, so they don't,
Yeah.
they come control.
But, yeah, when it's on, turns on for the start of shift, doesn't shut off for 12 straight hours or longer. So it ends up getting lots of hours on it if you're working.
Are they working on an electric police vehicle?
We look,
They
don't
do
think that
have
would
them.
work.
The only one that currently fits an officer is the Ford Lightnings.
Okay.
And I believe the Ford Lightnings might be going away,
Yeah, probably.
is what I kind of
Plus,
heard.
the whole problem with the electric is they're a drain. I mean, all that equipment is
Okay.
constantly running.
Yeah, so,
For admin you find them more in use for admin
Okay.
vehicles than you do patrol.
okay, that makes sense.
They're not gonna work.
Which is fine, it feels like we're obviously not the only city with that issue. You'd think someone somewhere would like try to tackle it,
Yep.
but, okay.
It's been looked into.
I assumed.
and then, so then next year would be our, for police, we're final year of the records management dollars being able to be allocated. It sounds like records management is just way behind schedule from, we've allocated dollars for the last few years, so in 27, if we don't have a payment we've made yet, we can kick that out another year. But for now, we're planning on in 27 to have the final payment for records management. We've already allocated $90,000 for that, as you can see in the two items below that are blue in color.
Okay,
We already levied for those dollars, and they're just sitting there waiting to be spent on records management. So we just continue to identify them as they're already there, they're identified in a dollar amount, so that we aren't re-levying for them. That's why they're blue in color.
And I can update council about it too. So our records management system is currently LATG, which was bought out by Central Squares. Central Squares has now gave notice last year to all the LATG departments that there's gonna be an end date to it. So we have to find a new records management system eventually. We don't know their end date yet. We had a big issue over Christmas where LATG was down for 2 weeks last year. And Central Squares didn't come up with the reason why it went down and wouldn't tell us, was very secretive. So Salt Lake Minnetonka agreed to host our data, so we're bringing all our data back from Central Squares and putting it into Salt Lake Minnetonka. We ran into a hiccup with Hennepin County. Supposedly that's all figured out, so we're finally gonna transfer all our data, and once it's transferred, we're gonna start looking for a new records management system. 14 cities are involved in our group. We kind of have an idea of what we're looking at, but it's probably 3 years out to go live, is what it's looking at. If we choose within this year, if we choose one, it's 3 years out to go live.
And then adding 2 squads of that lease vehicle is the difference in price between the
That's-
2 years there.
that is
It's
2.
2, yep, that's 2 vehicles.
Each one of these years is 2, correct? 239 is 2, 272 is 2, 327 must be 3.
327 is a year where we have 3, nope,
No, it's just 2. Is
should
it?
be,
27.
nope, that should be 3. But we go from admin to, I'll pull it up here.
So it's a kind of a-
It's kind of a partial one, yep.
And then we're starting.
And then
to do
after
the
that-
Replacement years.
Yep, and then we start getting replacement years at that point. So I know that some will get replaced and then, so we'll have in 27 we'll have 11, and then in 2028 we have 12. The reason why it goes down the following year is because we only we're replacing a bunch, so that's why it went down in 1 year, in 29, and then back up to 30. So every time we replace one, we may have to replace the equipment in them, so we have a dollar amount set, it's about 40 grand per vehicle to replace the equipment on them. Between radars and cameras and computers and such, it's about 40 grand for each one. So
So squad equipment is the lease and the equipment?
yes, so we budget for equipment in the dollars. So when you guys see a payment come through for outfitting the vehicle or whatever, that's included in the equipment, and then we pay the lease to the enterprise.
That's just.
That's one number in there, yes. That's why most years are, there's might be a high year and then a low year is because of how much new equipment, if you need it, how many vehicles are you replacing? Because you might need new equipment every couple of years or whatever, depending on how fast the radar goes out.
We try to use as much equipment out of the old squad as we do the new one. Our camera systems are the older camera systems are starting to have issues, so we're gonna slowly start replacing them, and I think they're $8,000 a squad cameras. So radars average about $3,000, computers about $4,000. So we're gonna slowly start replacing some of the equipment that we've had in them since 2015, 16.
Why is the camera so expensive? Don't know.
Comes
can charge it?
Because they can.
Yeah.
Because they went from a different camera to a brand new camera, so now we gotta pay like $4,000 more.
Okay.
Is Xanthus the only gravel road we got left?
No, a couple.
Teakwood over here, Vicksburg, and then the Spurs Streets up off Pembroke as well.
And
Kingsview, that little.
Now that you say them, yeah, you're right.
we got a handful left. Not too many, but a handful. So moving on to Public Works, one replacement for 26 is the replacement of the 2009. I'll tell you right now, I've personally seen that 2009, and it is in rough shape. I won't even give $1,000 to that vehicle. It's horrible.
Low mileage.
Huh?
Low mileage.
I don't think so. That one doesn't have low mileage either. It's just got lots of rust and mileage. So replacement of that. And then in 27, the hydraulic salt spreader. We currently have one from, do you know when that is? So we're replacing that one, right? Or is that an addition? I think
That's a replacement of the 2008.
Okay. And again, that one has the same problems with the whole rust issues.
We're starting to get more, maintenance bills on that. A lot of that stuff, because the diesel goes to Cornerstone as well, some of the stuff we can't manage in-house.
And the 120 is the.
That's the whole
salt
thing.
spreader.
Salt spreader
Yep.
and the
And
vehicle.
that's something we can't.
That's in the, looks like this. Yep,
Yeah.
you got it. I don't know if we could fabricate up something that real nice.
I don't know that we
We've done a lot of fabrication.
Yeah, I
on
don't
the
know what
building,
it
but
means.
that's going to be difficult.
It is.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult to fabricate.
Yeah, there's a lot of hydraulics in there and stuff as well.
Yep. We try to fabricate when we can, but that one's going to be rough. And then a skid steer trailer. That one is from
2014.
2014. That's replacing that one, right? Is that one in bad shape, Marty?
It's it's undersized for the equipment that we got now. So we bought it for the original skid steer that we bought, which was a smaller unit. The skid steers that we use now are much heavier duty than the original one. And we also have the bigger equipment like the mini excavator if we need to put something like that on there as well. So that's the primary reason that it needs to be changed out.
Yep. Okay. 1 ton, that's a replacement again of the 2012. The Packer and the Road Grader, which are in here and listed, should be 2030, so we're going to pass on those because those are actually going to get pushed out a couple of years. We don't use the Road Grader all that often, from my understanding, but I don't think we need a Packer or a Road Grader as much as we need other items right now. So.
This stuff seems like it would be a prime candidate for borrowing from other cities or having. We talked about a little bit about this in the past, that it's not like it's going to be, everybody needs to use it at once, but it just seems like, obviously Champlin probably doesn't have.
We
any
could
of
certainly
those,
look
but-
into that. I know Corcoran's got theirs, but they got 80 miles of gravel roads there still, so theirs is in use all the time. Rogers, I'm not sure about the availability of theirs.
And maybe we want to talk, so the Road Packer we don't have at all, right? We don't have one at all.
No, we don't have one of those. It's
So
been
I'd like
it's
to-
been on the CIP forever though, and just keeps getting kicked out.
It's not like you have to have
Yeah,
one.
without a have to.
No, I mean it will save some of the gravel on the roads, it'll keep it compacted down. I mean, we use it a lot, primarily before we get the dust control down. So we pack it down pretty well before that. We have borrowed them from other cities in the past, but
Sure. And we can maybe continue to borrow them too.
Like the Titan machinery up in Rogers, they don't even carry such a thing as a road grader, do
who? Sorry,
they? I think it's
Titan
called
machinery?
Titan machinery.
Titan,
up in
yeah.
Rogers. They don't even carry such a road grader. I wouldn't think they would, but
I think that some of their stores would. I don't think the one here does. I mean, but they.
if they don't have
Except-
one, then you can't rent it from them.
Yeah, the construction companies generally, get them out. If they're renting, they'll rent it for the whole of the summer season and stuff, so that makes it kind of difficult.
Yeah. So those two will get pushed out to 2030. So
Is there any plan on paving the remaining gravel roads in the city?
Well, now you're,
Now you're talking.
that's what I
No,
thought.
I know, but I'm
Now you're
just,
talking 1.5, 2 million bucks.
yes, but I'm just saying, like, if we keep pushing it out, at a certain point, they may get paved before it ever gets purchased. So,
possible.
It'll happen someday.
Yeah, possible. Yep. If that's the direction of the council, that
And
sounds
then
great.
I'm not-
You know
I was
what you'd
just-
like me to do there.
I don't know, I being new, I didn't know where and if any of those roads run any
None
schedule
of them are
to get.
planned to be.
Okay, that was,
Only one is a through road,
Okay.
Xanthus, and I don't know how often that's traffic. I'm looking at Marty and Paul on that one, how often that's traffic besides.
It's not,
Yeah, it's just
residents,
residents,
yeah,
really,
not much
yeah.
there.
It's not
That's
really
why I
cut
asked
through.
about, I thought Xanthus was the only one, but when you mention it. yeah,
Those
there-
little-
There's a few stubs, but there's
Yes.
not that many
yeah.
through roads besides Xanthus now. And the last one is replacing your utility body sign truck. That was from 2000 or 1999. So a lot of these items are just items that we've had and held on to and used for a long time that we're trying to get upgraded and more reliable.
But that sign truck can't have many miles on it either. You use it twice, 2 or 3 times a year.
Well, we bought it used.
Yeah, we bought that used.
We bought it used.
Oh,
So, it's got.
that's not the thing with the bucket on.
No, that's not the thing with the bucket. It's the machine.
We bought that used though too.
Yeah.
The old.
You got a good deal on that.
It's the old white Chevy with the hoist on the side of it that we use for a lot of different things.
They use it all the time. They don't even use it for. I mean, they use it for signs, but they use
Yeah,
it
we
for
use
all
it for
kinds of
signs, and the parks crew use it for towing mowers, depending on what the other equipment's being used for and stuff. So it's a good general purpose tool, and it's got a lot of tools on board of it for various situations. But if we get this one, it's a newer one. It gives us a lot more towing capacity than we have with the existing.
So those are the updates for the Fund 401, or basically anything in your CIP 1-pagers. Anybody have any questions about anything we talked about? We can go back and discuss any of them, otherwise we'll move on to the next funds. Don't look at the, what do I call it, the third pages or second pages of each one of the funds, because I did not have time to update any of those numbers for actual cash flows. They're all from last year numbers and such, so I need to, the only thing I updated was what the actual 2024 numbers were, which came from the audit anyways, but I will update all of those, like I said, and have that out to you guys and gals by next week on Friday.
Zach, can you go back over the, explain the details around the engine tender funding?
Engine tender funding, yep, so we had, we sold engine 11 from Station 1, because
400 and something.
$427,500, yep. Then we sold utility 21, that was kind of the box looking heavy rescue truck that we had. Again, it was older, so we were seeing repairs on it, or seeing that repairs could be needed, so we sold it. We sold that for $120,000. Those were both sold in 2024, one in February, one in July. And then we said we were gonna replace the tanker anyways, because we needed a tanker anyways, and that's in the budget there, $475, so that gives you $1,022,500. We paid $1.186934 million. We banked banked 50,000 of that in 2025, and then we will bank again another in that 1.020 million or whatever last year. We banked $50,000 toward the engine tanker, and $100,000 toward the ladder, and then we'll do the other 50,000 and then the remaining bit in 27. So So 50,000 in 27 or 26, and then in 27 we'll do the last $14,434.
And how about, I think this would help. Do we, obviously you guys do, I mean, we have no idea, but things that are put on the CIP levied for but never got bought. What fund or what box do we?
Those.
Where I'm going with that is, I think we may have to dig into that box.
You may have to if I will do some research on getting what those numbers are. Most of the stuff that we have had on the CIP we've purchased. However, there have been some items that we may have gotten for less or more money. And I started tracking this last year, I believe. So I have a spreadsheet that I've been just tracking, but I have not gone further back than 24. And I can do that. What makes it look a little weird right now in that fund is that it's negative. And the reason why it's negative is because we said we're going to get that future money of the 475 in 2026. So we'll prepay 1.186 million, even though we only had $547,000 in the bank for those two sales. So we basically put out $600 and some thousand, and then we said we'll get it back over time in the future levies, and we have pooled cash. So our cash sits in one bank account, and everyone just has what they call a draw or an allocation to that money. So we have, I don't know, $28 million or $30 million worth of cash and investments, and then every fund has an allocation of that money, but it sits in one account. So one account, one fund being negative means another fund is positive, and that nets each other out.
Like the signs, I mean, we
Yep.
levied money for signs,
Yep.
and there's a couple $100,000 sitting there for sure. I mean,
Yep,
it
and that's in a
might be
different
more than
fund,
that.
but yes,
Right.
but it's in the same bank
Right.
account. Yes, you got it.
And I'm not saying, I mean,
Yep.
we could look at signs as long as there's not, no $50,000 signs. I'm thinking 5 or 10.
A couple of sticks and some lights will work right
Is
for
that
5 or 10.
$5 or $10 you're
Yeah.
talking
Like the
about?
ones at Public Works, that sign right at Public Works, that's good enough.
So that, at the last meeting, there was a discussion and approval to replace the fire tanks at Public Works because of the cracks.
Yes.
and things like
Tanks,
that.
Yep,
And so where does that money come?
that'll come out of the capital facilities fund. So
This
that would come out
401?
of, yeah, it'll come out of 410
410.
capital facilities fund, which would be something that come up, whether that's signs money or previously allocated levy money that we didn't have an allocation for, which is what ended up having in Fund 410 is we had it, and that's what we talked about, I think it was last year, I believe. We discussed and said we should bring that down because we're not using it for anything, we shouldn't be levying for it, continuing levying for it, so that's where that will come from.
Okay. So we can
On those
that
bigger line items, we try to
the
use those.
410.
Yes, we use Fund 410 versus the general fund operations budget, which is, doesn't have, there's no way it has that much money in there to be able to fund that. So that's sort of repair and maintenance of that item. Now, the small ones we cover out of the general fund, like if a engine or whatever, that comes out of repair and maintenance out of the general fund.
Well, there's repairs and maintenance in
Yes.
most of those budgets.
Yes.
I mean, I understand that you didn't have anticipated that, so.
Yeah, that one is way too much to cover in the general fund, so that has to come out of capital facilities. There's just no way to cover it in the general fund.
And is it easier? Is it easier for you guys? I'll be the mouse in the corner. Is it easier for you guys? Because right now you're basing your things on the 19%. What if you're told, I mean, I think you basically had the idea that most everybody was in that 6 to 8 area. What happens if it's 8?
Then we gotta figure out what we can do to get it back to where we're at with 8.
Kind of, to me, that's, rather than spending too much time on, I hope we get this, maybe you should know the numbers so that you can really direct your time where you gotta have it.
That's what I'd love to have. It'd be great. And like I said, the reason why I asked for the number is, okay, can we hit that number right away? That's always been the goal.
Right.
If we can't, well then either it's a council direct item, so like part of the thing is planning for the ladder truck. We wanted to plan for that. Now, if we don't want to plan for that anymore, we could take away 300 grand out of that
Right.
$1.3 million number, and now we're not asking for an increase in that fund. But now we still got to figure out the ladder truck eventually, whenever that is. Some of them are council direct items. And that's why I broke it down on the last council meeting of, okay, here's what items are needed, as in based on plans or requirements based on union contracts. And everything else is essentially additional. And then here's what we had. So that's what we try to do as staff is, okay, here's what, give us a number what you're thinking about for council's perspective, which is good. And then staff will work on how do we get that to work as best we possibly can. And if it comes down to something where we don't know of an answer, then we give it back to the council, say, here's what we have. And
Right.
it's your turn to make the decision of what we want to do and what we need to do.
But at that point, they start horse trading.
We have to, yeah. I mean, that's
Well, yeah.
the choice.
Between the.
Yep.
Yeah, they gotta,
Yep.
between them, they gotta decide, do I
Yep.
want the utility truck or do I
Yes.
want, whatever.
You got it.
It's just the way it is.
You got it. And that's what happened last year, or was it last year or 2 years ago? When it's 2 years ago? We said, okay, we need to get, I don't remember how much it was, $150,000, where are we cutting it from? And it was this bit and this little bit and that little bit. And
Right.
here's how we made it work. It came back to council, said, here you go, here's a number, it made it work.
That was the last year, that was the oops on the tip thing.
Oh, that was it, yeah, maybe it was 400
It
and
was-
some thousand bucks, whatever, yeah, that was last year.
It was a big chunk.
Yep, 400 and something.
Last
thousand
year was
bucks.
big cuts.
Yes, it was.
The year before,
It was a little bit, it was like 70 grand or something, 60 grand or something we had to figure out.
Baby cuts.
And those are, yeah. I mean, if you cut
Compared.
5, 6, 7 grand from each line item or department or whatever, we can nitpick and go, okay, this little bit here, this little bit. When you're talking $1 million,
That's not.
that ain't little cuts. We're taking some serious hide here at this point. So, anything else on Fund 401? I do want to get to the other funds as well, at least a little bit. We don't. We are not going to get through all of these right now. I'm just going to let you know. I'm going to skip park development, park dedication, park capital, and trails. The reason I'm skipping those ones is because those all relate to non-levy dollars. We will talk about them, but I want to touch base on levy dollars first. And we'll go to capital facilities, will be the next one, which is in Fund 410. In Fund 410, we are not asking for, it's actually a $20,000 decrease in the levy from 2025 to 2026. The only one that's in there currently for 26 or 27 is the fire training facility, which is city grant dollars. I'm not sure what the council's perspective on that is, along with signs again, one of which is for gateways and parks, which we again haven't been using, and the activity center again in 2027.
Well, the fire training facility, even if we get that grant, I'm still not convinced it makes any sense, so
Sure.
I mean, we asked for support from other communities, and we got.
Lots of emails.
Yeah, we got emails saying, yeah.
Yep.
I want dollars.
Yeah.
How many dollars are you
Commitment.
gonna spend?
So
I'm not there until we know what cash flows.
I would agree.
It didn't.
It did not cash flow.
Make this into the bonding bill.
It did
No.
not, no.
We
Well,
didn't get anything.
we
out of it,
requested it again. Every
Yeah.
year we've requested it, and it's been,
But it's sitting at
it's,
the water tower.
yeah, it's with the water tower and everything else, it gets
in the
removed.
ditch.
Yep. And we made it again next year, so for 26, I already put it in, so. So we can
So
kick it out
really
again
it's
till
just-
27, or?
Oh, the fire training facility?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
I don't
no,
think
it's no.
they're- I mean, the state just did the budget for the next 2 years, and it's not in there, so.
Yeah.
it's
So
not
the
happening.
bonding years are always on even years, historically.
That's, yeah,
Except
but
this year.
they will still occasionally throw bonding out, but yeah.
Eventually, they have.
I mean,
but-
it seems like every year now it's a bonding year. It's just, there's a bigger
Bigger,
lump.
there's
that-
a big bonding and a little bonding.
Yes, is that something that we want to see further out?
I don't know. But, because again, I can't even see it cash flowing if we get the 1.5.
No, we can't.
So,
I mean, that's me personally.
Yep.
And no shots at nobody. I would rather, before we have this, I want it, everybody's happy with the fire department.
Good luck.
Good.
you got,
There's gotta be a way to make it work. There has to be. Every other city's doing it, so.
With what part's concerned?
I don't know if every city's happy with their fire department. Depends on when you ask them and when you do with it. And
Calls and whatever. I mean, we don't even have a clear defined schedule on who goes to what call. And to me, that's an issue.
we do have to clean that
What
up.
do you
And-
mean, what, I guess, I need to better understand what you're talking about.
If that bell rings right now, do you know if you got 3
Nope.
people going or 10?
I don't know, I don't have a clue.
See, the issue that I have with that is we spent $141,000 on calls last year, and maybe we only needed to spend 90 or 120. I don't know the number. I have no idea
I
what
see
the
what
number
you're
is.
saying. Well, so the problem that we have is that we work with a part-time or paid-on-call group of firefighters, and they have full-time jobs.
I get
And
that.
so therefore, we have to have, say 30 firefighters. We put the call out,
We don't have that many though, right?
we have 28,
28.
28, including Kevin and I, so we have 26.
Okay.
How many do you have going through academy right now? 4?
That's included. They're done with that right now.
Okay.
They're going into.
So you got like
That does not include the new ones that.
That's what the new
brand new
recruits,
ones.
the brand new ones will
The
have
ones just
4,
went through.
hopefully.
I see, yeah, that are
Yeah,
starting
so
in the fall.
just, yeah,
Fingers
Yep.
crossed.
Yes, that they make it through and stay.
Correct.
That's
Right
3
now,
or
we're pretty
4.
close on those, but,
Yeah, 3 or 4. something.
so the reality is we have to have the numbers to put an all
Yep.
call out so that we know that we get, the number hasn't changed, so the raw data that I've given to Zach that's sent out, before I was here, we're still getting about 6 to 6.5 firefighters for the last, since 21, that we have good data versus boxes of paper where they didn't track it the same. So I know a lot of council members, to include Scott, have said, make them come. Well, I can't make them come.
No, I'm not saying make them come, but to me, I ran some numbers. If you have a schedule where you need 4 firefighters to cover 14 hours, they know on Tuesday from 5 to midnight, that's my day. That's the only day you gotta come for that week.
That's the duty crew model that I presented to council that council doesn't want to do.
You're off topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're in the
Can
day.
We're in
we,
it.
yeah, I'd like to talk
So-
about the
We
fire
do
training
Yeah, but that's
facility.
full-time.
And
I'm
is
saying
this a
part-time.
need or a want?
But that's
On
part-
call.
The fire training facility?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be honest with you, it depends.
It's a want.
It's a want,
Depends
however,
on
we
the
don't have any work
lens.
to train currently for our firefighters.
And
So right now,
it's
we're
very
training in a,
expensive want.
yep, and that's why we would look at getting a grant for
there's-
that, because of, there's also the cash flows
It's
of,
not that we don't.
can
have a training
we,
place. We don't wanna
we
go
would
there.
be able to,
Where do
so
we
we
train?
ran this, and I could send this to
What do you-
what is-
Sarah
what
and
does Maple
Stephanie as
Brook
well,
train?
when we
Yeah.
did that,
They have a training facility.
yeah.
They have a
train there
place,
then.
they have Witcher with that they train.
I'm sure you can go to them and say, hey, how about if we, instead of building a training facility?
I
sure
know
you
you'll
go
all
rent space.
disagree with this, but at some point, we need to take responsibility for ourselves and actually do stuff within our own community. So,
It's just really expensive.
It is really
and
expensive, I don't disagree. Yeah, so we did run a
if-
cash flow
okay,
on
yes.
that to show, okay, what would happen if we were able to, because we would then, we wouldn't be using it 24/7. We
No.
all know that. We'd have other departments utilizing it.
Yeah.
So currently, there's 2 fire training facilities you can use in the metro area. One is in
East Metro and
East,
Burnsville.
yeah, East Metro, and then one down in the Able facility down in Burnsville. So you can utilize those 2 if it's not being booked. So we end up being booked on Sundays is when we end up having to go. And what happens is we then rent them out for X number of dollars. It's typically $250 an hour. We could rent out our facility for $250 an hour to any department that wants to use it. At the facility that we would put up. We ran the numbers, and I don't think it cash flowed until a few years out.
Okay.
I think it was like 3 or 4 years out, something like that. And at that point, depends on how many people use it. If it's used a lot, so we anticipated 0 usage at the beginning, and then
Yeah.
people would utilize it more and more as it was out more and more. Then it does cash flow. It's another way to offset tax levy dollars.
Yeah.
Which is what we looked at it from as well, along with a place to have our firefighters train somewhere.
Yeah.
Right now, they either train in the parking lot of either station. We've used them at Public Works. We've had them train there with FAO and fire apparatus operator stuff.
Actually, we had to use the
The
cubes
cubes
for that.
part.
Used
Parking
building,
lot.
okay, yeah. So we've used other businesses, which has been kind of them. They don't have to allow us to do that. Or we rent facility space. Or we end up in classroom, which I'll tell you right now, most of the firefighters in the department probably don't love looking at a screen or saying, hey, that looks nice to do. I would like to do that with my hands, and I can't do that. So.
This number here does not include land, correct?
It does not, no.
So land would be an additional expense on
Yeah,
top of
the
this,
idea would
right?
be that we would try to combine it into another piece of
Facility.
property somewhere.
As
or
one
a
state.
facility.
Maybe. Like the
And
9 acres that was.
It says city/grant. Is that grant like done, or is that just a
No,
hopeful?
that's why it's always in there, is that we
Okay.
don't have a grant set, so
Got
it's
it.
always been just pushed out 1 year until we get that grant.
Okay.
And that's hopefully to get a 50/50 grant, and that was used through bonding dollars.
Okay. That's the grant in question, is bonding.
Yeah, that's what we've utilized.
Okay.
Now, if we could find a different grant. we'd love
I
to,
wasn't
but-
sure what the grant.
I thought that
The-
was fully granted. That was a 50/50 grant?
Yes, it would
Well, then
only
it
be a 50/50.
never cash flow.
It would cash flow.
It- What you gave us had none of the 1.5 in there, and it barely cash flowed.
No, it didn't,
It didn't have any of the 1.5.
no.
So if we have to kick in 750, the sink goes in the ditch and stays there. And even, like I said, even with
I could try to.
the 1.5, we still have to get buy-in, I think you had said, from 5 different municipalities.
That's what we tried to get. I just used 5 as a number. I mean,
I
5
thought
better
the
than 4
hours
or
though
6 or.
reflected 5.
I think it was like,
I
think they were saying like 400 hours, but we couldn't get anybody to commit to any hours.
Well,
Right.
yeah, they won't
I just,
send emails and say, yeah, that sounds great, but.
Anyway, that's where I am in that. I mean, I'd kick it out to, I don't want it in 28 because there's already a
no,
ton in
it's
28.
just gonna keep coming back. That's-
Huh? Well, to me, it could be out into the 20, 30.
Nope, so I had it in here, other property grant was if we got a grant for 2.5 million, otherwise if we did no property, if we did, yeah, I'll resend this out to you. So
Okay,
you have
thank
the
you.
no grant versus grant dollars and you can figure out, I mean, it does cash flow, so it just takes a lot, without a grant, it takes a lot longer to get there, right? I mean, obviously, than it would be if you bought a piece of property for $1 million, it doesn't cash flow in 7 years. Eventually cash flows, but it takes a long time.
The original was. we were
How would
getting
it ever recover that 1.5 million?
Over
it was like-
a number of hours of use.
Eventually it would, if you got enough people renting the
Yep.
facility. I
Yep.
can see that it would, but
Yep.
we don't have any commitments from nobody. And, I mean, they're probably, and I get it. Trust me, I'm not trying to get the pot boiling or nothing. I get it. I mean, if you build it, maybe they'll come.
Yep.
But nobody wants to commit.
Yeah, so we had
It's hard to build.
the highest number of hours we had for usage was 20 hours a week for 50 weeks a year,
Yeah.
which is not very many hours a week, I'll be honest with you. 1,000 hours a year is what we had for.
To me, it doesn't fly, period, without the state money.
Yep, and that's
Yeah.
why we've always kind of utilized this and said, hey,
Since that's 2 years, I mean, they just
Yep.
did their
Big bond.
annual budget,
Yeah.
right? I mean, something could
Or a little
happen next
bonding.
year, but there's nothing there. In my head, there's nothing gonna happen for 2 years on this,
Yep.
and so it needs to move out at least that far.
okay, 2028 sounds like at
next
least, but maybe we can go to 2030, whatever you guys are, whatever the council wants to
Piling
do.
up on 28,
28's getting
understand.
piled in.
Lots of it on there.
But realistically, it's not happening without the state money, and that means it's not happening for at least 2 years.
Okay,
2028.
or longer, looking for council direction.
I mean,
Well,
28 is packed.
What all helps that is when some of that TIF money comes back in, but that's not until like 2030.
We want to do longer, so 2030
That's what I'd say, but
for the council.
you guys are gonna talk
I would
about it again
recommend
in
keeping it in
2027.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna talk about it
Well,
every
I'm just
year.
wondering if it's kind of a, I'll say a package, that's not what I mean, but I don't have better words for it. But if the idea wasn't to have it be a standalone, right? It was
not.
to have it be with a station or with something else, correct?
Yeah, the initial was to use the Triangle Pot property or tax
Tax forfeiture
property. So we didn't put a value for property with it.
Right.
Because that was the original intent.
So
Or
then-
it could be put with the 10 acres that the city had already purchased.
On 117.
Yep.
So my question then is we've got that we have the other fire station in 2031, so could that all essentially be, they're two separate items, but they're actually together then at the same
Good.
time, right? Like, wouldn't that make more sense? Although I'm choking on the $20 million, but I'm just saying that if it's supposed to be one thing, I'm wondering why we have it in 2026 and we've got the actual where it would be in 2031.
At some point, there's gonna be a great big bond for it,
No, I hear you. I just, should they not be in the same year?
It can be.
Or
Yeah.
together, or
The idea was that
would
we
be
need a training
after?
facility as soon as we can, so
Yeah.
if we can get it, great, that's what was in 26.
Okay.
But if we can't get it, then we can always do it, you know, with that same facility, then yes.
Okay.
So I'm fine with putting it the same year if that's what you wanna do, I'm good with it.
To me, if you bond 20, you might as well bond 30 and do more.
Well, I don't know, Rogers just put theirs in for 11 and it's really nice.
11 million? Oh,
You've
yeah,
got 3
whatever,
bays.
yeah, yeah.
It's a really nice.
So
place.
2031.
Immaterial.
2031.
It's gotta be at least after
2028.
or when, no sooner than when that other station is built, if that's where it's
2030.
going,
2030.
2030.
right?
Well, currently 2030 has nothing, so,
Well, so you did, well,
yeah.
I don't think you'd build the training facility before you had a station there.
You
Okay.
do the station.
2031 it is.
I mean, it's gonna move. probably
Yeah,
again.
we're just gonna, I'm leaving it
That's
out
so
there.
far
I mean,
out.
if it comes
Yep,
up in a
move on.
bonding bill sooner, great.
If not,
Okay.
that's,
That's one thing we have, 27, we have those signs again, and we've budgeted every year for signs, and again, haven't used it. So we don't have anything budgeted for 26 now in the capital facilities, that is, we've got 0 in there. If the council wants to bring, I would recommend not bringing that levy down to 0, but we can. Maybe reallocate it, I don't know, whatever you wanna do for the capital facilities, cause there isn't, capital facilities fund is technically has 0 expenses this year.
yeah.
And $200,000 worth of levy going into it.
So are you recommending we stay the same, or what are you?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I would recommend just keeping it the same.
Well.
We can maybe
it's up to
discuss
you
that
guys
with the
how much
council, yes.
pain You wanna
Yep,
do the,
yep.
with the horse trading, but.
Yep.
These are, this is, 410 is a levied fund.
410 is a levied fund, yes. Right now it has $200,000, right in the
2035.
thing you see in there, it's
Yes.
just 300,000, but, or 220, but that's not right.
How
How
did,
much of that
Doesn't it say
$1.5 million
190?
then that was for the training facility
for
is
25,
in
that's-
that?
Oh, got it. Wrong year.
Well, there was whatever with $200,000 would be, and then the rest would come out of reserves from previously levied dollars that we'd ever spent for signs or for the remodel of City
I'm
Hall.
just trying to understand what's new of that number that we've now pushed out. What
Yep.
was
Of
gonna
the
be
280.
new levy dollars that
So-
is in the budget that you,
We did not put any
Oh,
new
last
levy
year.
dollars in the capital facilities fund for 2026. We kept it at the same number, which
so
was
changing this changes nothing.
nothing.
Changes the budget. Okay, that's what-
Unless we want to remove the levy out of the capital facilities because we have no expenses in there. And then move it to some other fund, essentially, which we could do.
What levy, the
So-
190?
The levy that, so right now in 2025, we levied $220,000 in that fund. In 26, we now have no expenses in that fund whatsoever. The the fire training facility had a $750,000 number. 200,000 or whatever, 200,000 of that 750 was supposed to be paid for by new levy dollars, and then 550 would come from previously levied dollars for signs or
There's
remodel
the
of City Hall or whatever it may be.
But if you leave that 200
Yes.
there,
Yep.
it puts 0 to the levy.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
for now,
That's what I mean.
I would say leave it there.
Yeah.
If you take it down to
Because
zero,
You're going to need it.
if you take zero, if you take it down to zero, now it's negative 200,000, but then that 200,000 would then
Correct.
move into the general fund,
Right.
and then that's harder to get back into that
Yeah.
capital fund later on. You got it. Okay, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know if we have enough time for payment management, but I do want to hit on it just slightly because we don't have any major things besides we pushed out territorial road improvements, which is the portion from the Parkway to Brockton. That would be where Odessa is. We pushed that out 1 year. We had planned on doing it in 26. We pushed it out to 27. We are going to look at having that done with the developer and or assessments. We did an assessment process this year in 25 to do that project in 26. And the assessment value came back as not enough. Essentially, it was, I'm going to use short terms because Jason's looking at me going, yeah, it was terrible. There wasn't enough assessment value to be able to provide us with a bond to be able to do that project. And so we're going to look for a developer to help us out with that. There's a developer on the far east side that's next to Brockton where there's currently a sign on, billboard, that wants to develop their property. We're going to look to them to help us out with that project, to help out with the assessment gap we have. So right now we look to say we can do 100% assessments. There wasn't enough assessments to be able to go around with the value, so we said we'll scrap the project until we can get the developer come in. The developer has expressed interest to us. We've had a conversation with them. but they aren't ready to go yet. And so we look to them to be able to help us out with that project.
The only thing that may change, and it's on discussion tonight, is that the South Diamond Lake Road project is 1.4, almost 1.15 that we,
Yep.
that we already have the money for.
Yep.
We're possibly looking to add to that with the 125th and East French Lake Road. And that is about 7 or 8, 1 million.
Complete.
So that's gonna make that project about 1.9 total, 1.8,
If you add the two together?
if you add the
Yeah.
two together,
Yep.
which means we're gonna be about 350, 400 short. No.
So we have MSA dollars paying for the South Diamond Lake Road one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's 100% funded for
Yeah.
the South Diamond Lake Road one. And so that's what, 800 and some thousand bucks.
Oh,
whatever
so
it
there's
is.
plenty, there's.
So then, yeah, so
Yeah,
then we have,
Yeah.
and then we budgeted $800,000 in '25 to do that project. So essentially, it should be hopefully a wash.
Right.
The other one we want to talk about, and we added in here, are the 2 intersection improvements on Fernbrook, 117th and 114th in there. Brush Creek Parkway is also in there at 27. Our goal is to get the county to move and do them all at one time, because logistically, it makes a whole lot of sense to do all of them at one time than it does to do individual ones, and we're shutting down the road partially
Well,
here and
yeah.
partially there and doing this.
Just get it done.
Makes no sense to us to do that.
And also, I think from getting all your stuff there, part of, like, that's why we got hit with that one, right? Because we had to pause, and they took all their stuff, and then we had to pay to restart it again.
Yep,
Mobilization,
remobilization.
thank
Yep.
you, I couldn't think of the word. So it seems like we'd save money by doing them all at one time.
Yep. We do not have all the funding available for us.
That's the problem.
The problem we have is we don't have all the funding. The county does not have it on their 5-year or 10-year CIP items, so this is going to be a hard push. We're going to keep it in '27. Do I think we're going to be able to do all those projects in '27, which is $11.4 million?
Yeah, I saw that.
The answer is no. We are going to have to push it, but if we continue to have an idea of it every couple of years, we can always continue to push it out another year as long as it's a couple of years out. And know that we're going to need to pay for it. Now, not all of those projects are needed to be paid for by the city, when they're going to have so much money to go around. However, it is we're going to have to prioritize at some point what do we want to do. for roads.
114th is still developer.
That's all developer paid, that is correct. At least currently.
One of the three of them, in my mind, that's the least important, personally, but,
Also, a point I've heard.
and that's it, of the three. I feel
Well,
like,
even
yeah.
the 117th, are we thinking that, assuming DCM gets through, it's gonna kick in 700 of that, or do we have any clue?
I don't know if they're going to kick in any of it. We're going to try to push as much as we can, obviously, to try to get dollars out of the project. We have the ability to go after county funding, participation funding, which is $500,000 per intersection, which helps. Huh?
It's listed per project.
Per
We're
project.
hopeful they'll apply it per intersection.
We're hoping that, yes. per
So that
project.
would be the one benefit to do them as three separate
Yes.
projects, is we could
Eventually,
technically
they
go
will treat
after.
it that way, despite that.
Kevin
We're
said it would be
hoping-
per intersection. That's what he told me.
Well, we'd like to say that, but
Well,
when we say it as one big project, now it might be limited to that. So.
Yeah, right.
Again, that's a little bit of money. It's not a lot of it. And we're
Yeah, but
continuing to
$1.5
push on
million.
that.
Different question.
That's, there's a lot of expenses in '27 for that pavement management fund, and we know we want intersection improvements. Problem is, we need a willing partner to be able to help out, and right now, I don't know if that's the county or not. Or if it's us.
It's gonna be a decision for somebody else too.
Do we have any questions? I wanted to hit on those few funds first. Everything else is either related to fees that come in from development, or
Stormwater?
donation dollars. So we will have a further conversation on CIP, most certainly in the future, likely on the 22nd of July, for a conversation about budget, whatever. We need. And I will get an updated one of these out to you guys by next Friday. So it'll actually be out next Thursday.
Remind me again when this all happens. September?
September. First meeting in September. September 13th, 12th, 14th.
I'm leaving for 23 days in September.
You're leaving for 23 days. Okay, what days are you gone?
From the 19th.
Took us
Gotcha.
You know there's a new changed the open meeting law.
Yeah, they did.
You could meet.
I don't think you want to meet.
Not
Yeah.
not from India, I'm not going to.
We will, yeah, we will visit this obviously again and again and again, and hopefully we can get to something in September that we are good with and we can,
That feels like a threat.
no, but it just, we need direction. It's the reality though.
It's reality.
Any other questions before we adjourn? Thank you very much for sitting through this. I know that it's a lot, so.
Well, we're adjourned.
Thank you.